After the Gojo was sealed and declared a criminal, Itadori's sentence was reactivated, and an executioner was called in to carry out this mission. This is the Yuta who has returned after a long time to take care of things in Gojo's absence, but has already returned to kill one of his teacher's students. This great battle will be the start of the third season of Jujutsu Kaisen. But how did it happen? If you're curious, follow me and watch this video to the end. At the end of the Shibuya incident, the fake Geto uses Mahito's idol mutation on the Tengen barrier to awaken two new types of shaman. Those who already had a curse technique but were normal humans, and those who had absorbed cursed objects from shamans he had contracted in the past. But he has also made a contract with 10 million curses, so he releases all of them at this time to bring back the Heian era, the golden age of curses. It is against this chaotic backdrop that Yuta makes his first appearance in a long time. He arrives in the city already saving people so that they don't die from the curses. After that, he goes to the High Command to receive another mission. He knows that the higher-ups are just using his power, but he doesn't care because now he's going to obey all their orders. Even if he is a disciple of the Gojo, they can't trust the Yuta, even if he kills 1,000 curses. So he'll have to make a contract for his next mission. This mission was issued after the Inumaki lost his arms to him in the Shibuya incident. So Yuta himself is ordered to kill Yuji Itadori. As for Itadori himself, he isolated himself from the other students and didn't return to the Jujutsu school. The only one who stayed with him was Choso, his older brother. After the Shibuya incident, Itadori is fine, even though he received a lot of damage from his battle with Mahito. He even thinks that this is the result of Sukuna's power growing inside him. Here Choso tells Itadori to go back to Jujutsu school and not worry about him, since he still has to get his brothers back. Only to discover that Itadori isn't worried about him. He's just not going back to school because Sukuna is planning something that involves Megumi, and he still blames himself for the thousands of deaths at the hands of the Cursed King. That's why he can't stay with the others anymore. He even asks Choso if everything is alright, since he was the one who killed his brothers. But Choso replies that it was all just a misunderstanding, and that it's not a question of forgiveness, because in the end they are brothers. Together they set out to hunt down as many curses as possible, and this is the trigger for the great battle that is about to take place. While they're hunting and killing curses, Naoya shows up looking to kill Megumi. Here they have a brief fight, where Naoya shows off his super speed and beats them both. It's only after this that he considers fighting seriously to incapacitate Itadori, but it's at this point that they all lock up. They feel a cursed energy so absurd that the Itadori thinks it's the Gojo, but he realizes it's something scarier than that. Looking at the buildings in the distance, he sees the Yuta. He realizes that the Itadori is not alone. The Itadori even asks if it's him, but the Choso realizes that it doesn't matter who it is, since his goal is clear. The Yuta jumps from the building to the ground next to the three of them, destroying the entire floor, to the amazement of all of them. As he walks towards Yuji, he asks who is accompanying him. Then Naoya takes his logo off the table. With his hands up, he declares that he's on Yuta's side, and Itadori reminds him that this guy is a second-year senior. The Yuta in turn asks who this guy is, who then introduces himself as being from the Zenin clan and Maki's cousin. He also declares that he's there for the same reason as him and that he won't get in the way. Meanwhile, Choso tells Itadori to run away. He declares that he can take care of Blondie, but he knows that it's his brother who's being hunted. He goes on to advise Itadori to run away, because if he fights he's sure to die, since Yuta seems to have the same style as Gojo. Naoya goes on to say that he'll help, but only if he keeps Itadori's death a secret for a while, as he wants to attract Megumi. The Yuta accepts, while Itadori walks away, arranging to meet Choso at the usual place. When the battle begins, the four of them move at the same time, but Naoya is faster and manages to block Choso's piercing shot, while Yuta runs past him behind Itadori. As the two run, they also realize each other's abilities. The Itadori realizes that the Yuta can be fast even when carrying a sword, and the Yuta realizes that the Itadori is also fast, since he planned to take him down in the first move. The two continue running towards a car. The Itadori jumps over it, while Yuta is quicker to go around the car to catch it on the other side. When he tries to cut the Itadori off, he grabs the car and pulls himself back to the other side. The Yuta is amazed at his speed and even compares him to the Maki. But the Itadori doesn't stand still and prepares his next move. With his monstrous strength, he slams the car into the Yuta. Then he realizes that he can't deal with this guy on the outside. With this gap, he intends to flee into a store. But he is surprised by the same car being thrown in his direction, so he has to dodge quickly. Yuta asks if Itadori is surprised that he's not the powerful type, but the Itadori notices that, on the other hand, his amount of cursed energy is enormous. The Itadori notices that he is his opposite. He compensates for his lack of physical power with concentrated cursed energy, but on a completely different level. The Yuta declares that he has more cursed energy than the Gojo itself, but since he has 6 eyes, his energy expenditure is almost zero. while he himself can spend all his energy. But from here he concentrates on his mission and stops talking. The Yuta lunges forward, trying to slice the Itadori. He narrowly dodges and can't believe his eyes. He remembers Tadu's lesson about reading the enemy's cursed energy. And that, unlike a normal person, you know what your next attack is. With an elite shaman, it's difficult to read his movements due to his refined control of energy. He thinks this, while giving his all to dodge the enemy's attacks at the last moment. He realizes that it's completely different with the Yuta. In his case, his body and sword are bathed in a cursed energy so great that all his attacks are deadly. At the same time, he reduces his damage to a minimum with this energy. But the Itadori declares that he can't die yet, so he keeps fighting. The Yuta keeps attacking while the Itadori can only dodge each of his deadly attacks. He realizes that he has to do something about his executioner's sword. He knows that swords usually have no effect on him due to their reinforcement with cursed energy, but against the Yuta it's different. Any attack from him is deadly. He runs from the Yuta towards a car, then jumps into it through one of the windows. As he gets in, he notices a knife on the car seat. He quickly picks it up while going through the windows. Yuta then attacks him from above, but Itadori quickly parries the attack. Yuta is astonished and wonders where he got that knife. But he realizes that it's just a camping knife, so as long as it's not a cursed tool, there's no need to be afraid. Then it's the Itadori's turn to attack with his new weapon. He launches his attack, but the Yuta defends himself. He then calms his spirit and begins to fill the knife with cursed energy. He does this by remembering the teachings of the Gojo. Then the Yuta attacks and the Itadori defends himself with the knife. But the pressure of the attack is so great that the Itadori has to give his all to hold back. It gets to the point where his knife starts to cut his support hand with the blunt end. But the Yuta isn't even trying. He unbalances Itadori's defensive position and drives a two-handed punch into his stomach. A blow so strong that even Itadori feels the impact. But the executioner continues and launches another attack with his sword, which the Itadori gets into position to defend. But to his astonishment, his knife is cut in half and the Yuta's blow cuts straight through the Itadori's stomach. Without hesitation, he strikes back by stepping on the sword before it has finished moving. He then breaks it by kicking it with his other foot. The Yuta takes his distance and is impressed by how he broke his sword. But he understands that this is normal because he's a student of Gojo's, so it wouldn't be easy to win from the start. The Itadori has taken critical damage, but advances because they are both unarmed. But to his astonishment, Rika appears behind him and grabs his head. The Itadori feels the terror that this curse exudes. Then Yuta tells her that they're only joking. Itadori wonders where this thing came from, but he can't move anymore. Meanwhile, Yuta approaches her, telling her to keep holding Itadori. Then he simply plunges his sword through the Itadori's chest, and Itadori can only watch as it dies without reacting. The Yuta even apologizes to the Itadori, and the Sukuna soon realizes that he screwed up. But he also notices something else, so he remains motionless. Here the Itadori theoretically dies. After that we see Yuta carrying his body and defeating Choso with a single attack. He promises to heal the defeated Naoya on the ground who would have died from the Choso's poison, but only if he tells his superiors that the Itadori is dead. A while later, the Itadori wakes up in another place near the Yuta, who was expecting him to wake up. The Itadori doesn't understand anything, but the Yuta continues to stare at him. Then, out of nowhere, he starts laughing with relief that the Itadori isn't dead. He explains that the Gojo asked him to take care of the first and second year students if anything happened to him. That's why he had to pretend until now by attacking the Itadori. The Gojo came to him because he had a bad feeling about something that might happen in the future. But he asked him to take special care of the Itadori, who just like him had an execution issued. So he decided that he would be the best choice to execute the Itadori. But because he had made a pact with the elders, he had to kill the Itadori once. Then, as soon as his heart stopped, he started healing with his reverse cursed energy. He did this because he heard how Itadori had come back to life before, so he thought it might work. When Itadori asks why he's doing all this for him, the Yuta replies that it's because Itadori is important to people who are important to him. Like Itadori, he also carried a great uncontrollable power in the past. A power that he himself created. But unlike him, who was to blame for it, the Itadori is not to blame for the power he carries.